There's a photograph from 1943. A Marine sergeant, 26 years old, Medal of Honor around his neck, slight smile, eyes tired. He looks ordinary, average height, average build. Nothing about the photo suggests what this man did, what he survived, what cost he would later pay. His name was John Basilone. They called him Manila John. And on October 24th, 1942, during one night on Guadalcanal, he became a legend by doing something that should have been impossible. He held a machine gun position alone, all night, against 3,000 Japanese soldiers, and he survived. This is not a story about superhuman ability. John Basilone was human, completely, ordinarily. He bled, he feared, he wanted to live. But one night, circumstances demanded he become more than human, demanded he do the impossible, and he did it. Then he volunteered to do it again at Iwo Jima, where the impossible finally killed him. This is his story. Not just the heroism, but the cost, the price he paid, the burden he carried, the death that came for him eventually, because heroes do not stay lucky forever. John Basilone was born November 4th, 1916, in Buffalo, New York. Italian immigrant family, working class. His father was laborer. His mother raised 10 children. John was middle child, unremarkable childhood, average student, decent athlete, nothing extraordinary. At age 18, he enlisted in the Army, not from patriotism particularly, from economics. It was 1934. Great Depression, jobs were scarce, the Army paid, fed you, gave you purpose. John served 3 years, got out, worked odd jobs. Then in 1940, with war looming, he enlisted again. This time, Marines. He liked the Corps better, stricter, tougher, more brotherhood, found his place there. He was assigned to 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, machine gun section, the .30 caliber Browning machine gun. Heavy weapon, crew served. Normally 3 men, gunner, assistant gunner, ammunition bearer. John was gunner, good at it, steady hands, good eye. Understood the weapon, could strip it blindfolded, could clear jams instantly, could maintain sustained fire without overheating the barrel. Technical skill that seemed minor would become critical. The 7th Marines deployed to Samoa initially. Training, preparing. Then, August 1942, they shipped to Guadalcanal, Solomon Islands, first major American offensive operation of the war. The island had airfield, Henderson Field. Japanese had started building it. Americans seized it. Now both sides wanted it, desperately. Control of Henderson Field meant control of air over the Solomons. Strategic importance was enormous. Both sides committed heavily. The Japanese attacked repeatedly, trying to retake the airfield. The Marines defended, outnumbered, undersupplied, sick with malaria and dysentery, but holding, barely. The perimeter around Henderson Field was thin. Few thousand Marines holding against tens of thousands of Japanese. The math was bad. Everyone knew it, but retreat was not option. Hold or die. Those were the choices. October 24th, 1942. Japanese planned major assault, 2 full regiments, approximately 5,000 men. Objective was to break through Marine lines, overrun Henderson Field, destroy the airfield, eliminate American presence. They attacked at night, 9:00 p.m., artillery bombardment first, then infantry assault, waves of Japanese soldiers, screaming, charging, dying, and coming again. The intensity was beyond anything the Marines had experienced. John Basilone's position was on the southern perimeter. Machine gun emplacement, sandbagged position, good fields of fire. His crew was with him. Assistant gunner, Sergeant J.P. Morgan. Ammunition bearers, they were ready. Had stocked ammunition, extra barrels, water for cooling, everything they could prepare. But you cannot prepare for 3,000 men charging your position in darkness. You can only fight and hope. The Japanese assault hit Basilone sector hard. They concentrated forces there, trying to break through. The machine gun opened fire, tracers cutting through night, Japanese falling, but more coming, always more. The volume of enemy fire was overwhelming. Rifle fire, machine gun fire, grenades, mortars, everything. The sandbagged position shook, bags torn apart, dirt flying, men screaming, chaos. Within 30 minutes, Basilone's assistant gunner was hit. Shrapnel through the chest, fatal. He died quickly. The ammunition bearers tried to fill the gap, keep the gun fed, but the Japanese fire was too heavy. One bearer was hit, then another, wounded, moved to rear. Basilone was alone, one Marine, one machine gun, and 3,000 Japanese coming through the jungle darkness. He kept firing, barrel glowing red, overheating. He changed barrels, barehanded. The metal was too hot, burned his hands. He did not stop. Slammed new barrel in, kept firing. The Japanese came in waves. First wave cut down, second wave stepped over bodies, kept coming. Third wave, fourth wave, endless. Basilone fired until ammunition ran out. Then he ran to other positions. Dead Marines everywhere. Took their ammunition, ran back, loaded, fired again. This pattern repeated through the night. Fire until empty. Run for ammunition, return, fire again. He was exposed during these runs. Japanese fire everywhere. Bullets snapping past, grenades exploding. He was hit multiple times, shrapnel, grazing wounds. Nothing immediately fatal, but bleeding, in pain, exhausted. He kept going, because stopping meant death. Not just his death, the death of everyone behind him. If his position failed, Japanese would pour through, would reach the airfield, would overrun everything. His sector was the critical point. He knew it, fought accordingly. Around midnight, Japanese changed tactics. Instead of massed waves, they sent smaller infiltration groups, trying to sneak past the machine gun, flank it, destroy it. Basilone heard them in the darkness, movement in the jungle. He could not see them, too dark. He fired on sound, short bursts, controlled, conserving ammunition. Sometimes he hit targets, sometimes he heard screams, sometimes nothing, just kept firing, kept them at distance, kept them from closing. At 2 a.m. the machine gun jammed, cartridge stuck in chamber, would not extract, would not feed new round. The gun was dead. Basilone was alone, in darkness, with thousands of Japanese somewhere in front of him. He worked frantically, cleared the jam, hands moving by touch, no light, just muscle memory, training, desperation, got the gun working, started firing again. The Japanese had advanced during the jam, were closer, much closer. He could see them, maybe 50 meters. He opened up, full automatic, sustained fire, cut them down, drove them back, bought breathing room. His hands were destroyed by this point, burned from hot barrels, cut from shrapnel, blistered from constant firing, blood and dirt and gun oil mixed together. He could barely grip the weapon, but he kept firing. Pain was abstract. Survival was immediate. Pain could wait. Survival could not. At 4 a.m., friendly forces counterattacked, Marines from reserve positions. They advanced to reinforce Basilone, found him still firing, surrounded by hundreds of spent brass casings, dead Japanese in piles, the machine gun still working, Basilone barely conscious, operating on instinct. They relieved him, took over the position, pulled him back. He collapsed, had been fighting for 7 hours, most of it alone, against regiment-strength enemy force, and his position had held, had not fallen. The Japanese had not broken through. Medical corpsmen examined him. Burns, shrapnel wounds, dehydration, exhaustion, but alive, incredibly alive. They wanted to evacuate him, send him to rear for treatment. He refused, insisted on staying with his unit. They bandaged his hands, gave him water, let him rest. By dawn, he was back at his position. helping repair the defenses, restocking ammunition, preparing for next attack, as if the previous night had been routine. The battle assessment came later. Basilone sector had faced estimated 3,000 Japanese attackers during the night. Bodies were counted at dawn. Approximately 38 dead Japanese directly in front of his position. Confirmed kills, attributed to his machine gun. Others were wounded, withdrew, died elsewhere. Total casualties inflicted by one Marine with one machine gun were likely higher. Exact number unknown. But 38 confirmed against 3,000 held alone all night. The mathematics were staggering. His commanding officer recommended him for Medal of Honor. Highest military decoration, rarely awarded. Requires extraordinary heroism. Basilone's actions qualified, absolutely, clearly, undeniably. The recommendation was approved, rushed through channels. By May 1943, less than 7 months later, he was awarded the medal, presented by General Alexander Vandegrift, Commandant of Marine Corps. The ceremony was formal, dignified. Basilone stood at attention, medal placed around neck, salutes, photographs. He looked uncomfortable, did not see himself as hero, just Marine who did his job, but the Marine Corps saw differently. Saw propaganda value, saw recruitment opportunity, war bonds needed selling, morale needed boosting. Basilone was perfect, war hero, Medal of Honor, photogenic, articulate enough. They pulled him from combat, sent him on war bond tour, across America, giving speeches, appearing at rallies, shaking hands, signing autographs. He hated it, felt like fraud. His friends were still fighting, dying. He was selling bonds, making appearances. It felt wrong, dishonorable. But orders were orders. He complied, raised millions for the war effort, did his duty. But he wanted to go back. During the tour, he met Lena May Riggy. They married July 10, 1944. Quick courtship, wartime romance. She was beautiful, kind. He loved her. But he was restless. The tour was ending. He had choice. Stay stateside, train recruits, live with his wife, grow old, safe, or return to combat, to his Marines, to the fight. The choice was obvious to him. Lena begged him to stay. He had done enough, had earned the right to sit out the rest. But Basilone could not. His brothers were still fighting, still dying. He could not stay safe while they bled. He volunteered to return, requested combat assignment, was granted. He shipped out January 1945. Destination was secret, but everyone knew. Iwo Jima was next. The island was critical. Airfields for B-29s, needed for bombing Japan, would be heavily defended, would be bloody. Marines knew this, went anyway. Basilone went with them, left his wife, left safety, went to war again, because that was who he was. Marine first, everything else second. Iwo Jima landing was February 19, 1945, D-Day. Basilone was with 1st Battalion, 27th Marines, machine gun platoon sergeant, same job, different beach, different war, but same John Basilone. The landing was nightmare. Beach was volcanic ash, black sand, vehicles bogged down, men struggled to move, and Japanese fire was everywhere, artillery, mortars, machine guns. The entire beach was killing zone. Marines died in waves, bodies piling up, wounded screaming, chaos beyond description. Basilone's unit landed in 3rd wave, hit the beach, immediately under fire. Men fell. Basilone kept moving, organizing his section, getting machine guns into position, returning fire, trying to establish foothold. The beach was congested, vehicles destroyed, equipment abandoned, Marines pinned down. Progress was measured in meters, each meter bought with blood. He saw tank trap. Japanese had built obstacles, preventing tanks from advancing inland. Tanks were stuck, vulnerable. Japanese were targeting them. Basilone knew tanks needed to move, needed to support infantry advance, needed to break through. He grabbed demolition charges, ran to the tank trap, under fire, exposed, placed charges, blew the obstacle, cleared path for tanks. They advanced, provided covering fire, pushed forward. His action created breakthrough, local, temporary, but critical. Lives were saved. Advance continued. He was moving forward, leading his machine gun teams, shouting orders, directing fire, being sergeant, being leader, being John Basilone. A mortar round landed nearby. Fragment hit him, neck, killed him instantly. He fell, face down in black volcanic sand. 28 years old, Medal of Honor recipient, war hero, husband, Marine, dead. The impossible finally caught him. Luck ran out. The war he survived at Guadalcanal killed him at Iwo Jima. 4 hours into the battle. 4 hours. He had fought all night at Guadalcanal, but could not survive 4 hours at Iwo Jima. His body was recovered later, after the immediate area was secured. Marines wrapped him in poncho, moved him to beach, eventually to ship, eventually home. He was buried in Arlington National Cemetery. Full military honors. His widow attended, barely holding together. 7 months married, widow at 23. The price of being hero's wife. The cost of loving a Marine who could not stay safe. Basilone was awarded Navy Cross posthumously, second highest decoration, for his actions at Iwo Jima, clearing the tank trap, leading under fire, dying while advancing. He is one of only 3 Marines who received both Medal of Honor and Navy Cross, elite company, recognition of extraordinary service, but he was dead, could not appreciate the honor, could not wear the medals, could only be remembered, could only become legend, could only inspire others. Which is what happened. His story endured, grew, became myth. But beneath the myth was man, flawed, human, mortal, who did impossible thing twice, survived once, died the second time. The question that haunts is why. Why did he go back? He had done enough, more than enough, had earned safety, had wife waiting, had whole life ahead. Why return to combat? Why volunteer for Iwo Jima? Friends asked him this before he shipped out. His answer was simple. My boys are still out there. Can't leave them. Can't sit safe while they fight. Wouldn't be right. Wouldn't be able to live with myself. Have to go back. Have to be with my Marines. That answer explains everything and nothing. It is truth, but truth that makes no sense to people who have not felt it. The bond, the duty, the inability to abandon your brothers even when abandoning is rational. Basilone felt that bond, honored it, died for it. Some call this heroism, some call it stupidity. Both are partially correct. It was heroic to return to combat, to put duty above safety, above self-preservation, above love of wife. That takes courage beyond normal understanding. But it was also stupid, tactically stupid. He was more valuable as instructor, as symbol, as recruiter. His combat effectiveness was not worth his symbolic value. One more machine gunner, even excellent one, was not worth Manila John alive and inspiring thousands. But Basilone did not calculate value that way. He calculated in simpler terms. Marines fight. He was Marine. Therefore he fought. End of calculation. No complex analysis, no cost-benefit. Just duty. Pure, simple, fatal. His death devastated his unit, his wife, his family. The Marine Corps lost symbol. America lost hero. But most importantly, the men who served with him lost brother, leader, friend. The man who held Guadalcanal became legend. But the man who died at Iwo Jima was just man, bleeding, dying, alone in the sand. No glory in that moment, no heroism, just death. Violent, random, permanent. That is the truth beneath the legend. Heroes die like everyone else, painfully, pointlessly, permanently. The Legend of Manila. John grew after his death. Books written, movies made. HBO series The Pacific featured him, portrayed his Guadalcanal stand, his war bond tour, his death at Iwo Jima. Actor John Seda played him. Did it well. Captured something of the man. But even good portrayal cannot fully convey what Basilone experienced. The fear he mastered, the pain he endured, the exhaustion he pushed through, the impossible weight of being called hero when you feel like fraud, the guilt of surviving when friends died, the compulsion to return to danger because safety feels like betrayal. These internal realities are hard to portray, hard to understand, hard to feel unless you have lived them. Veterans who knew Basilone describe him differently than media portrays. They say he was quiet, humble, did not talk about Guadalcanal, did not seek attention, just wanted to be regular Marine, just wanted to be with his guys. The Medal of Honor embarrassed him, made him stand out, made him different. He hated being different, wanted to be one of them, equal, brother, not hero, not special, just Marine doing job. This humility is common among actual heroes. They do not see themselves as extraordinary, see themselves as people who did what needed doing, what anyone would have done in same situation. This self-assessment is often wrong. Most people would not do what they did, would break, would run, would die. But heroes rarely recognize their exceptionality. That blindness is part of what makes them heroes. The cost of Basilone's heroism was paid by multiple people. He paid with his life, obviously, directly. But Lena paid too. Widow at 23, rest of life alone, never remarried, kept his name, kept his memory. Died 1999, 55 years later, still his widow, still mourning. That is cost few consider. Heroism does not just kill hero, kills part of everyone who loved them, creates permanent wound that never fully heals. Lena lived with that wound for half a century, honored his memory, but lived incomplete, missing piece that was John, that was her sacrifice, not chosen, not glorious, but real, painful, permanent. His family paid cost too. Parents lost son, siblings lost brother, nieces and nephews lost uncle. They were proud, of course, but pride does not erase grief, does not fill emptiness at holidays, does not answer questions about what might have been. Basilone could have lived, could have stayed home, could have raised family, could have grown old, could have told stories to grandchildren. All that potential died in black sand at Iwo Jima. Family carried that loss, that knowledge of life unlived. That is burden they did not choose, but bore anyway. The Marine Corps paid cost too. Lost symbol, lost recruiter, lost trainer, lost leader. Basilone alive was worth divisions. Basilone dead was just another casualty, important casualty, honored casualty, but dead nonetheless, unable to contribute further, unable to inspire through presence, only through memory. And memory fades, new generations arise, new wars come, Manila John becomes name, then becomes footnote, then becomes forgotten except by few who study history. That is cost of death. Relevance decreases over time. Hero becomes historical curiosity, then becomes unknown. That is price of being human. Even heroes become forgotten eventually. But the men he saved at Guadalcanal lived, because his position held, because Japanese did not break through. Those men went on to fight, to survive, to go home, to raise families. Their children, their grandchildren, exist because John Basilone held a machine gun alone all night in October 1942. The math is impossible to calculate exactly, but conservative estimate suggests hundreds of lives saved, maybe thousands. Those lives are his true legacy. Not the medals, not the legend, the people who exist because he fought. That is meaning, that is value. That is why his death, though tragic, was not meaningless. He bought life with his death, saved many by sacrificing one. The arithmetic of war. Terrible, but sometimes necessary. And Basilone made that calculation twice, knowingly the second time. That takes courage beyond medals. Modern military studies Basilone's Guadalcanal stand as case study in defensive combat. How did one man hold against regiment? Multiple factors: good position, excellent fields of fire, machine gun superiority over rifles. Japanese tactics were flawed, massed assaults into kill zone. These factors mattered, but they do not fully explain. Other Marines had same factors, did not achieve same results. The difference was Basilone, his refusal to quit, his ability to function under extreme stress, his technical mastery of the weapon, his willingness to endure pain, to push through exhaustion, to keep fighting when stopping made more sense. These personal qualities multiplied his effectiveness beyond tactical considerations. He was not just good machine gunner, he was exceptional human, operating at peak capability in worse circumstances. That combination is rare. That explains Guadalcanal. But that same exceptional nature killed him at Iwo Jima. He did not have to clear tank trap. Was not his job. He was platoon sergeant. Could have ordered someone else, but he did not. Saw problem, solved it, personally, directly. That initiative is what makes great leaders, also what kills them. Leaders who lead from front die. Statistically, inevitably, Basilone led from front, at Guadalcanal, at Iwo Jima. Survived first time, died second time. The math caught up, statistics won. Heroism has survival limits. Eventually, luck runs out. Shrapnel finds you, war claims you. Basilone reached that limit February 19, 1945. The impossible finally proved impossible. Even Manila John could not survive forever. His death was mourned nationally. Newspapers ran stories, radio programs dedicated segments. America lost hero, symbol, inspiration. But the personal loss was greater. Unit lost leader, men lost brother, wife lost husband, family lost son. These intimate losses matter more than national mourning. Nation moves on, has new heroes, new wars, new symbols. But wife does not move on. Family does not replace son. Marines do not forget brother. Personal loss is permanent. National loss is temporary. Understanding this distinction is important. Honors what Basilone actually was, not symbol. Person, with people who loved him, who missed him, who carried his loss for decades. That is real cost. That is true sacrifice. If Basilone could speak from grave, what would he say? Probably nothing about heroism, nothing about medals. Likely would talk about his Marines, his brothers, would ask if they made it home, would ask about families, about children, about whether the fighting was worth it, would not talk about himself, would deflect, would minimize, would change subject. That is who he was. Humble, focused on others, uncomfortable with praise, just wanted to be Marine, just wanted to serve, just wanted to do right thing, did right thing until it killed him. That is heroism, not seeking glory, doing duty, whatever the cost. Basilone paid ultimate cost for his Marines, for his country, for duty. He knew the cost, paid anyway. That is his story. That is his legacy. That is why he matters, not the legend, the man, the choice, the sacrifice, the cost paid willingly for others. That is John Basilone. That is Manila John. That is the Marine who held Guadalcanal alone all night and died at Iwo Jima trying to do it again. Hero, husband, brother, Marine, man, gone but remembered, lost but honored, dead but still teaching those who listen. This is his story. Complete, honest, true. The aftermath of Basilone's death rippled through the Marine Corps in ways that transcended simple mourning. He had become symbol during war bond tour, face of Marine courage. His death at Iwo Jima, just hours into the battle, sent shockwaves. If Manila John could die, anyone could die. The invincibility myth that sometimes surrounds decorated heroes shattered. Marines understood viscerally that valor does not grant immunity, that medals do not stop shrapnel, that heroism is mortal. This understanding was sobering, necessary, but painful. The men who served with him at Guadalcanal reacted with complicated emotions: pride that their brother had been recognized, grief that he was gone, anger that he had been sent back, relief that they had not been there when he died, guilt about that relief. These contradictory feelings are normal in combat veterans. Nothing about war creates simple emotions. Everything is layered, complex, often contradictory. Basilone's death was no exception. One Marine who served in his machine gun section at Guadalcanal, Private First Class Stephen Helstowski, gave interview decades later. He said, "Johnny didn't have to come back. He'd done his part, more than his part, but he couldn't stay away. That was just who he was. When I heard he died at Iwo, I wasn't surprised. Sad, but not surprised. Men like Johnny don't survive wars. They fight too hard, care too much, put themselves in harm's way too often. Eventually, the numbers catch them. I loved that man like a brother, but I knew, even back then, he wouldn't make it home. Heroes rarely do." This perspective from someone who knew Basilone personally provides insight beyond official records. Helstowski recognized something fundamental. Basilone's nature made his death likely, not inevitable, but probable. Men who fight the way Basilone fought tend to die. They take risks others avoid. They volunteer for dangerous missions. They expose themselves to protect others. This pattern increases combat effectiveness, also increases mortality. The two are linked. Cannot have one without risking the other. Basilone lived and died by this equation. The war bond tour that Basilone hated may have been his best contribution to the war effort. He raised approximately $1.4 million. Adjusted for inflation, that is roughly $20 million in 2024 dollars. That money-funded aircraft, ammunition, equipment saved lives indirectly through better equipment and more supplies. His reluctant participation in publicity tour had strategic value beyond his combat actions. One Marine at Guadalcanal killed 38 Japanese. Important, but millions in war bonds potentially saved thousands of American lives. The math suggests his stateside service was more valuable than his combat service. He would have hated this analysis, would have rejected it completely. But numbers do not care about preference. The cold calculation suggests keeping him stateside would have been better for overall war effort, but impossible for Basilone personally. That conflict between strategic value and personal honor is ancient dilemma. Basilone resolved it by choosing honor over strategy. That choice killed him, but was true to who he was. Lena Basilone's life after John's death deserves more attention than it typically receives. She was 23 years old when widowed, young, beautiful, could have remarried easily. Many men would have been honored to marry Medal of Honor recipient's widow. She refused all proposals, remained Lena Basilone until her death in 1999. 55 years as widow. She said in 1980 interview, "John was my husband, is my husband. Death doesn't change that. I loved him, love him, will love him until I die. Other women remarry. I understand that. No judgment. But for me, there was only ever John. When he died, that part of my life ended. I'm not waiting for him to come back. I know he's gone. but I'm also not replacing him. Cannot replace him, won't replace him. This is my choice, my way of honoring what we had. 7 months of marriage, lifetime of love, that's enough for me. This dedication is remarkable, also tragic. Lena lived 55 years defined by 7 months. She had career, had friends, had full life in many ways. But romantic love was permanently closed by choice, by loyalty, by inability to imagine replacing John. Whether this was healthy is debatable. Therapists might argue she should have moved on, lived fully, found new love, but measuring someone else's grief by external standards is unfair. Lena made her choice, lived with it, found meaning in it. That is her right, her honor, her sacrifice. Different from John's, but no less real, no less costly. She became advocate for veterans and Gold Star families, worked with various organizations, helped other families who lost loved ones, found purpose in service. This was her way of continuing John's fight. He fought with rifle and machine gun. She fought with advocacy and support. Different weapons, same war, same dedication. Her contribution to Marine families over 55 years was substantial, immeasurable really. How many families did she help? How many widows did she comfort? How many children of fallen Marines did she support? No records quantify this, but people who knew her say she dedicated her life to it. That was her mission after John died. Her way of ensuring his death had continuing meaning, that she was not just widow, but active participant in honoring his legacy through helping others. The Marine Corps named destroyer escort USS Basilone in his honor. Commissioned 1949, served until 1977. 28 years of service, appropriate memorial. Basilone would have liked having ship named for him, more than statues, more than plaques, a working ship, doing actual mission. That fits who he was. The ship served in Korean War, Vietnam War, multiple deployments, thousands of miles, hundreds of missions, protected other ships, completed objectives, served honorably, decommissioned 1977, scrapped. But for 28 years, there was USS Basilone, doing what John would have wanted, fighting, serving, protecting. That is memorial with meaning. Highways were named after him, parks, buildings, VFW posts, American Legion halls, schools. These are standard honors, appreciated, but somewhat distant from the man himself. Basilone was not politician, not public figure by choice. He was machine gunner, sergeant, Marine. The memorials that fit him best are the small ones, the machine gun displays at Marine bases, the training courses taught using his tactics, the recruits who hear his story during basic training and understand what being Marine means. These quiet, practical memorials honor him more accurately than grand monuments, because they connect to what he actually did, what he actually was. Working Marine, not symbol, not icon, just Marine doing the job. Guadalcanal battlefield where Basilone fought has been preserved partially. Henderson Field still exists, still operational as airport. The area where his machine gun position stood is marked. Small memorial, plaque, visitors come, not many. Guadalcanal is remote, expensive to reach. But those who make the effort stand where John stood. Look at the terrain. Understand the fields of fire. Visualize the battle, feel connection to history, to heroism, to sacrifice. The ground itself tells story. Jungle, heat, isolation, difficulty. Understanding Basilone's achievement requires experiencing the environment, even peacefully, even briefly. The place conveys what words cannot, the impossible nature of what he did, the terrain that should have killed him, the miracle that he survived, the understanding of why his stand mattered. The ground remembers. Even if people forget, Iwo Jima is different. The island is Japanese territory. Access is restricted. Few visitors allowed. The beach where Basilone died is not memorial site, is not marked specifically. Just black sand beach, volcanic ash, hot, uncomfortable. Thousands died there. Cannot mark them all individually. Basilone is one name among many. Important name, decorated name, but just one. The democracy of death on beach that day included privates and sergeants and lieutenants and colonels. Basilone was sergeant, died like thousands of others, violently, randomly. The beach does not distinguish, does not honor specifically, just remembers collectively. All who fought, all who died, all who bought that miserable island with their blood. The decision to allow Basilone to return to combat has been debated by military historians. Some argue it was mistake. That Medal of Honor recipients should be preserved, kept safe, used for training and morale, but not risked in combat again. The strategic value of living hero outweighs tactical value of one more machine gunner. This argument has merit. Basilone alive in 1945 could have inspired thousands of new Marines, could have improved training, could have contributed more through symbolic presence than through combat action. His death at Iwo Jima was net loss for Marine Corps. Provable loss, measurable loss, but others argue the opposite, that forcing heroes to stay safe dishonors them, treats them like propaganda tools instead of warriors, that men like Basilone earn right to choose. If they want to return to combat, to their brothers, to the fight, they should be allowed. That individual autonomy and warrior ethos matter more than strategic calculations. This argument also has merit. Treating Basilone like valuable object rather than autonomous person would have been degrading, dishonorable. He volunteered, was not ordered, made free choice, died pursuing that choice. That is his right. Denying it would have been wrong. Both arguments are valid. The debate is unresolvable. Depends on whether you prioritize strategic value or individual autonomy, military effectiveness or warrior culture, pragmatism or honor. These are eternal tensions in military service, cannot be fully reconciled. Basilone's death illustrates the dilemma, does not resolve it. Each person must decide which value takes priority. There is no objectively correct answer, just competing goods that sometimes conflict. What is clear is that Basilone himself had no doubt. He chose combat, deliberately. Despite knowing the risks, despite having alternatives, despite pleading from wife, he chose to go back. That choice was true to his character, true to his values, true to who he was. Whether it was right choice strategically is debatable. Whether it was right choice for him personally is not. He made the only choice he could live with, literally. Could not live with himself if he stayed safe while his Marines fought. So he went back and died. The choice killed him, but the alternative would have destroyed him internally. Different kind of death, slower, but just as real. He chose quick death with honor over slow death with guilt. That was his calculation, his right, his end. The 38 confirmed kills at Guadalcanal represent men who died, Japanese soldiers, enemy combatants, but still men, with families, with lives before war, with futures that ended in jungle darkness in October 1942. This is uncomfortable truth. Heroism in war requires killing. Basilone was hero because he killed effectively, saved American lives by taking Japanese lives. This is moral complexity of combat. Necessary killing is still killing. Enemy soldiers are still human. Celebrating Basilone requires acknowledging he killed 38 people, deliberately, skillfully, necessarily, but killed nonetheless. That is weight he carried, weight all combat veterans carry. Taking life, even in legitimate combat, creates psychological burden. Basilone never spoke publicly about this, but those who knew him said he had nightmares about Guadalcanal, about the faces in the dark, about the killing. The medal honored his courage, did not erase his trauma, could not erase his trauma. That is cost of combat no medal addresses. The Marines who fought at Guadalcanal and survived carried physical and psychological scars for life. Malaria, dysentery, tropical diseases, combat wounds, PTSD before there was a name for it, nightmares, hypervigilance, difficulty adjusting to civilian life. These costs were widespread. Basilone was not unique in suffering, was unique in dying before costs fully manifested. His death at Iwo Jima spared him decades of psychological aftermath, morbid calculation. But arguably true. The Marines who survived Guadalcanal often struggled for rest of their lives. Depression, alcoholism, failed relationships, inability to hold jobs, PTSD destroyed many of them slowly. Basilone avoided that fate, died in combat, clean death relatively, quick, no long decline, no decades of suffering. That is grim silver lining. But veterans sometimes acknowledge it, would rather die in combat than live with wounds, physical or psychological. Basilone got warrior's death. Many envy that, even as they mourn it. The modern Marine Corps uses Basilone's story in training. Every recruit hears about Manila John, about Guadalcanal, about standing alone, about refusing to quit, about duty, about sacrifice. The story inspires, motivates, sets standard. Recruits understand that being Marine means being willing to do what Basilone did. Not everyone can. Not everyone will be tested that way, but standard exists. Basilone said it. Every Marine since measures themselves against it, usually falls short, but trying is the point. Aspiring to that standard, even if unreachable, makes better Marines, makes better warriors, makes better protectors. That is educational value of his story, not historical curiosity. Active teaching tool, living legacy. Basilone died 1945, but still teaching Marines in 2024, still inspiring, still setting standard. That is immortality, not physical, but meaningful. John Basilone's grave at Arlington National Cemetery is well maintained. Headstone is simple. Name, rank, Medal of Honor, notation, dates, nothing elaborate. He would have wanted it that way. Visitors come regularly, leave coins. Tradition in military cemeteries. Quarter means you served with the deceased. Dime means you served together. Nickel means you trained together. Penny means you visited to show respect. Basilone's grave has many quarters, from Marines who served with him. As their numbers dwindle, the quarters become fewer. But the pennies continue. Strangers who never knew him but respect his service, who honor his sacrifice, who remember. That is what graves do. Create physical location for remembrance, for connection, for honoring. Basilone's grave serves that function for thousands. His widow Lena is buried beside him, finally reunited. 55 years after he died, she requested this, wanted to be with John, even in death, especially in death. They lie side by side, together as they were for only 7 months in life, together now forever in death. Her headstone notes she was his wife. That is how she identified herself, not by her own achievements, not by her own life, but by her relationship to John. Some might see that as diminishing herself, but she saw it as honoring him, honoring what they had. 7 months that defined 55 years, that was her choice, her honor, her love. The graves together are testimony to love, to loyalty, to dedication, to grief that lasts lifetime, to bonds that death does not break, only pauses until reunion. They are together now. That matters to their families, to those who understand what they sacrificed, to anyone who believes love endures beyond death. The graves testify. John and Lena Basilone, together, finally, permanently. The story of John Basilone, Manila John, the Marine who held Guadalcanal alone all night and died. At Iwo Jima is complete now, not just facts, but meaning, not just events, but impact, not just hero, but human. He was ordinary man who did extraordinary thing, then did it again. Survived first time, died second time, left widow, left legacy, left example, left lessons. He was not perfect, was not invincible, was not superhuman, was human, completely, ordinarily, with fears and doubts and pain, but also with courage, with duty, with refusal to quit, with love for his Marines, with willingness to sacrifice. These qualities made him extraordinary, but beneath extraordinary action was ordinary man, making choice, honoring commitment, doing what he believed right. That is John Basilone. That is his story. That is his legacy. Remember him, honor him, learn from him, but understand him as human first, hero second. Human who became hero, not hero who was superhuman. That distinction matters, makes his achievement more impressive, makes his sacrifice more meaningful, makes his example more applicable. He was man like any other, until circumstances demanded more, and he delivered. That is lesson, that is inspiration, that is hope. We are all capable of more than we think, when circumstances demand, when duty calls, when brothers need us, we can be extraordinary. John Basilone proved it by being ordinary man who did impossible thing twice and paid ultimate price. That is his gift, his testimony, his truth. May we remember it. May we honor it. May we learn from it. May we be worthy of it. Manila John, hero, husband, brother, Marine, man, gone but not forgotten, dead but still teaching, lost but still inspiring. That is immortality. That is legacy. That is John Basilone.